Hello and welcome back to the My Realtor Jaleesa home buying series. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Jaleesa and I am a realtor here in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. And this video is all about the costs associated with purchasing a home. So to start out, I have categorized the costs into two different categories. The first being the upfront or process costs, and the second part being the day of closing or closing day costs. And the reason that I do that is so that you are just aware of things that you'll be paying kind of along the process, and then also the things that you will pay on the day of closing. So to get right into it, the first thing on the list is the broker retainer fee. This is basically an upfront fee that is very similar to a lawyer retainer fee, and I've seen this typically be between $300 to $400, but it varies from brokerage to brokerage, so that's something that's worth asking your agent. I personally have chosen not to have this as an upfront cost, and instead this is a closing day cost. But again, this will vary from agent to agent, so that's something that you will want to ask. So the next item on the list is earnest money. And basically it's like a security deposit on your offer. And usually it's anywhere from 1% to 2% of the cost or purchase price of the house. So the reason it's like a security deposit is because when you make the offer, basically this is the money that you're using to secure it, to say, I really am interested in this house and I'm not going to break the contract. Now, if you were to break the contract, this money goes to the seller, basically like damages. Now I'll go more into detail on when the money would maybe go back to you or when the money would go to the seller in a future video, but just know that if you were to back out of an offer because of a valid reason for the contract, you would get that money back. Also, know that the earnest money actually goes towards your closing day costs. So for example, if you were to owe $10,000 on your closing day costs, but you've already paid $2,000 up front, then $8,000 would be what you owe on closing day. You can really play around and vary the amount of earnest money you choose to offer based on how interested you are on a house. Even though it won't change the amount of money that the seller will make at the end or change the amount of money that you would owe at the end, it can still show that you are really interested because you're willing to put that much more money on the line on the front end, knowing that if you were to back out of the offer, they would keep it. Most lenders will require at least $1,000 in earnest money. So know that when you're calculating this, that at least as a bare minimum, you should expect $1,000. So earnest money would be considered one of the process costs because this is actually due at the time of making the offer. Once the offer is accepted, you have 48 hours to actually process the money to the seller in a trust account. The next item on the list is the inspection. This is your opportunity to have a professional come through the house and point out anything that maybe you could expect or any possible hazards that you might not have seen. So typically the cost of having an inspection is $400 to $600, and there are other inspections that you can do too. You can do a sewer line inspection, you can have a radon test done, and sometimes an inspector will recommend a hired professional for some of these more specific types of inspections. So the inspection costs again will fall into the process costs because it is due on the day of the inspection and it's paid directly to the inspector. So the next item on the list is the appraisal. So the appraisal is actually for the benefit of the lender. Basically what it is a professional goes out to the property and evaluates the value of the home. And the reason for that is because the bank wants to make sure that the house is worth what you want to pay for it. Because if for some reason you're unable to make your payments and they have to foreclose on the house, they want to make sure that the house is still going to be worth it. So even though the appraisal is for the benefit of the bank, this is still a cost to the buyer, and typically that will be between $400 and $600. This is also considered a process cost because it is due at the time of the appraisal. That said, some lenders will pay this upfront for you and then roll it into their closing costs that you would then just pay on the day of closing. Again, this will vary from lender to lender, so make sure you talk to them about what their process is. All right, so now we are headed into the closing day costs. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've really emphasized the word closing day costs because there are also closing costs and it's super easy to get those confused. Closing day costs are the costs that you will be paying on the day of closing. Closing costs are the costs that are associated with the actual closer. The reason it's important to really differentiate these two things is because a lot of the calculations are really similar, so making sure that you keep them straight is really important. So the down payment amount is going to vary depending on the type of financing you're doing, but the most common with conventional and FHA loans is 3 to 3.5%. But know that there are financing options that can be as little as 0%. So talk again to your lender to see if those options are available to you. So the down payment is money that you're actually putting towards the house itself, and that's that initial equity that you'll have in the home. So when you calculate the amount that your loan is, it'll be the offer amount minus the down payment, and that's the actual loan. So for example, if you're buying a house for $300,000 and you put $5,000 down, then you will be taking the loan out for $295,000. The last thing on my list, but certainly not least, are the closing costs. And this is kind of a big one because it includes all of the closing costs that are associated with making your purchase happen. As a general rule, you can typically calculate the closing costs as being 3% of the loan amount on the house. So I know that there are a lot of moving parts and this can be a bit confusing, but I hope this video helped. And if you found this information useful, please feel free to check out some of the rest of my videos in the series, and I'm always looking for ways to make the complicated make more sense. Have an awesome day. Bye! I'm always looking for